Morning, everybody. Welcome to Mornings with the Focus. Wilson Tarver Jr. joined by Justin Walters. All right, it's the first week of preseason for the rest of the NFL. We had a Hall of Fame game last week. For many teams, it's the first official game week of the year where you're going to go through what a typical week looks like before everything is live. So that's it. Looking forward to that. One of the things Justin had today, which I thought was interesting topic, was to go through the playoff teams from last season, both the NFC and AFC, and talk about what they've, I want to say, changed or what they've each addressed after last year, however they ended last year, going into this year, and the things that they addressed in the hopes that they can make a run this year. So we'll start AFC. The Bills, Justin. What do you feel is the thing that they've done to put themselves in place to make a better run this year?
I think going into going into off season, I think they based it off of that 13 seconds where they blew that game, because they basically could have won. They could have won the Super Bowl if they made it through Kansas City. So I think they went into the off season thinking to improve the pass rush, to finish basically just finishing games. So they wanted to improve the pass rush, even though they had young talent they added the year before. They wanted to solidify it, so they went with the Von Miller move, and then the corner Elam they drafted. They traded up to draft him, and I think just overall depth. They added O.J. Howard as a backup tight end and another receiver. So I think it was just depth. I mean, they're a pretty stacked team going in, so I think it was just for them just finishing the season off.
Yeah, that's the thing. Offensively, we saw they have all the firepower in the world. You got one of the best wide receivers in the league, Stephon Diggs. We saw Gabriel Davis go nuts. With their tight end, Dawson Knox, took some steps last year as well. Yeah, man. And that's the tough part, though, right? Is everyone gets so enamored with teams and what they're able to do offensively. If you can't slow down other high-powered teams, man, it gets you to where the Bills ended up last year. We got someone's mercy. It's literally just a case of who got the ball last. And then, what can you truly do about it? And that's a feeling nobody wants to have. Where if you had a good pass rush, maybe you win that game maybe you win that game earlier. Maybe you go up a couple scores. The last thing you want to do is, conversely, if the Bills were the team that was trailing, the Bills would hope that their defense get them some stops to give their offense a chance to get back in it. But yeah, that's a theme for many teams, and it's always interesting to see how each team goes about prioritizing that. Some teams it's pass rush over everything, and we'll figure everything else out. Other teams, we'll build a great roster, and then we'll manufacture a pass rush. Is that really the answer? You know what I'm saying? So on to the Pats.
For them, I think depending on the growth of their quarterback, just overall team speed and youth. They let Hightower go, they let Van Noy go. The J.C. Jackson move, that was probably more of a cost. But then they added a lot of some young DBs, and then flexibility. I think for them, most of the AFC East teams, it's to beat the Bills. So I think for them it was, we talked about the smaller, quicker glue cornerbacks that can really get into Diggs. Like the type of route runner he is, to have a J.C. Jones, or they drafted Jack Jones, they drafted Marcus Jones. And I think that's going to be their plan. And then Jalen Mills will probably be for the bigger receivers, or even then they still have the other kid, Jawan Williams. But I think for them it was just becoming faster. A lot of times they lost in the slot. They lost with the linebackers getting caught in coverage, and or trying to chase Josh Allen. So I think for them that was the thing. And then offensively, it was just I think weapons and being able to separate and just widen the field to make the game easier for Mac. Whether they make plays for him or sometimes just throwing the ball down the field and nothing happening, just that threat. And I think that's what Tyquan Thornton brings. And then Devontae Parker's ability to make tough catches. He's open when he's not open type thing, and Mac's accuracy just to get the ball out of his hands. And I think teams were able to get pressure on him, start to blitz, and they had no fear of playing cover zero or some type of man and sit on short routes, because they just didn't have the weapons. So the offensive line's solid, and then they had the running backs are good. So just I think for them, they're trying to see what route they take schematically. That's the thing we're going to be watching. What their actual plan is defensively, because they added Jabril Pepper, so they're going to have 3 or 4 safeties on the field at all times, and then they have all the young corners just to see that route that they go.
Yeah, I think it was huge in them to get some speed, inject some speed into their offense. Yeah, we know the kid could play on time. We know the offense can stay on schedule, but they just weren't threatening folks. And firsthand, when you're not threatening folks offensively, defenses these days, man, they're rude, borderline disrespectful when you can't threaten them, and that's what happened to them in the playoffs. They were like, oh. There's no threat of anybody running by us unless we mess it up. Okay. Let's bring everybody up. Let's challenge everything. Then, the timing's disrupted. Then the pass rush is a little bit better. Yeah, I think getting Devontae Parker was huge. I think adding Tyquan Thornton, the rook, is big as well. I think it kind of rounds out the receiving core and puts people into more of their natural roles, I believe, which could definitely help Mac. And then defensively, it's a tale as old as time, man. You bought off of the Patriots. You command a certain amount of money. They're probably going to tell you thank you for everything whilst you hit free agency, or they help you move, or they facilitate a trade of your liking. That's just the way it goes. And like you said, they loaded up at corners. I don't think they care about size. The Patriots have always been more about, can you cover? And if you can cover, they're fine. They're A-okay with it. On to a very obvious one, the Cincinnati Bengals.
Obviously, for them, throughout the season, the playoff run, the Super Bowl, offensive line has been was the target. They basically rebuilt the offensive line. Besides Jonah Williams, they put all new guys in there. And then the other thing for them, I think, was just tightening up the secondary. They added Daxton Hill, who looks like right now he's playing in the position of Jesse Bates, and then Cameron Taylor-Britt. So whether that's to whether that's to take Eli Apple's spot, or I guess Mike Hilton's one of the better slot corners in the NFL. So really, it's just a safety net, because they're both versatile players. Whether if they have an injury, or just to be more versatile on defense. And if Apple struggles, it's not the end of the world to just yank him and throw one of those other guys in there.
Yeah, said very, very simple. They need to figure that out with Jesse Bates. Be real honest, shouldn't even got to this point. I don't get it. I don't know what else you're spending your money on at this point. Now, if this was 2 years from now, when you got to pay some of the wide receivers, I could see you maybe not having enough cash to go around. But as of right now, 80%, like the most important pieces on that offense are all on rookie deals. Why didn't you pay Jesse Bates?
Right.
Like, to me, you have no excuse. It's one of those things where just sometimes bad team organizations, even when they start trending upwards, just can't help themselves. Like, there's literally no reason that you can't put this man on a nice long deal, front loaded, before you have to pay these kids. Because when it's time, if you've been paying attention, the money y'all are going to have to give Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow is nuts. I don't even know if you'll have money left for T. Higgins. And I'm not trying to be rude or, be mean to Bengals fans, just being honest. And the 3 of those guys got to be looking at that too. How do you not just take care of how do you not take care of Jesse Bates?
Right.
I feel like it's not like he's just a guy. Like, he's an integral part of your defense.
Probably, yeah. Probably best player.
Yeah, especially when you've kind of skipped that corner a little bit. So it's kind of disrespectful. The Steelers, they had a lot. One thing we do know, they have a great defense. But there's some other things they had to figure out.
I think for them, the obvious one was quarterback. Again, if anything would be an upgrade. Mobility, arm strength, any type of movement ability, just anything would be an upgrade. So even, adding the guys they added, it's an upgrade. The offensive line obviously needed work, because Najee was fighting for every yard. He should, he had a good season, but it was a lot of it was on his own, and a lot of it was check downs from Ben. But just the offensive line had to be improved, which they added some pieces, and then just upgrading an already defense that's can be dominant at times. So adding I think Hayden's gone, so they added uh, Levi Wallace, a solid corner. Then Miles Jack, who already seems to be their linebacker one, which and then imagining Flores, with Miles Jack, and if he can get Devin Bush right,
Mm-hmm.
I mean that defense could be scary because they've never really had a dominant corner. So having guys that have solid players, the Witherspoon and Cam Sutton and Levi, I think, and then having Mink over the top of the things that he allows you to do, along with Watt and all that. But just seeing what they do defensively, I think they could give teams problems.
Yeah, I'm not worried about them on that side of the ball at all. I think we both were excited when they ended up getting Miles Jack for what it means to the middle of their defense. I think it frees up, if they're all able to stay healthy, it frees up Minka even more. Because you talk about the athleticism of a duo at linebacker, just pure athleticism, puts them up there at one of the top groups in the league. Now they have to go out there and do it together. They got figured out. But I'm not shocked, with one of the reports you alluded to, with Miles Jack jumping Devin Bush already, on the depth chart. I think that was a matter of time and almost a formality. And I don't even think I don't take it as an indictment on Devin Bush either. You're not supposed to be able to get Miles Jack. You were able to. Right. It is what it is, right? And then quarterback, it was funny because one of my guys called me this morning, and he was at, he was talking about the other quarterback on the team I root for, what's up with him, and all the reports and stuff. And I was like, it speaks volumes if you think about it. The Steelers had every reason to be one of those teams interested in a veteran quarterback, and the one that they chose was Mitchell Trubisky, and then doubled down on, drafted Kenny Pickett. Like, I think for them the main thing is the quarterback just not get in the way and execute plays, keep the offense on track. Few explosives here and there. Get the ball to your playmakers. You got Frymuth, Claypool, Deontay Johnson, who just got paid. Like George Pickens. Like, you have weapons. You just have to keep the car on the road, man. I think that's all they want. You're in a place where you don't have to score 30 a week. Like 17 to 25 is, and maybe one of those might be aided by the defense. But, get you about 21 a game, and who knows what you could do. Just being on track or providing some sort of consistency from that position could go a long way for them. All right, on to the Titans. They've had some interesting changes. Of all the wide receivers that wanted their extensions, they were the only one that moved one of them.
Right, yeah. Again, not a move I fully endorse, but, again, when you're a team that drafts well and has depth, you got to make choices somewhere, and the way their style of play, just being a physical team that just is tough to play. Like, if you look at it, it's like, they don't have any star players, but if you just go through the roster, there's really no bad players on the roster either, And I think if you look at that defense, it has a chance to be really good if they can get the corner play to catch up, and again, it's not like you're asking guys to do something they can't do. They're talented players on that defense, so you add Farley, you get Fulton, you got the safeties are good, and Harold Landry's a good player. Simmons is one of the best players in the NFL, underrated defensive tackle. So I think for them it was just get healthy. They won a lot of games last thing. They were number one seed, and Derrick Henry missed half the season or majority of the season, and Julio Jones was mostly out, in and out, and it was a lot on AJ Brown. So the thing I think a lot of people don't talk about is, the more I watched them this weekend, and I was like, that's a good team. They blew out the Chiefs last year, beat the Bills, and I'm just thinking about, a lot of the plays AJ Brown got, but AJ Brown was the guy, like one of the only guys, especially with no Henry and Jones in and out. So I mean, maybe they're not so much trying to replace AJ Brown with Traylon Burks. It's a combination of Traylon Burks, Robert Woods doing those things. You know what I mean? So you can't take them both away. And Traylon Burks, the things that he does well, I would hate to say, but they're on par with AJ Brown. The things he does well, he's not a complete player yet. You're not going to get the consistent route running yet, but the run after catch and the contested catch stuff, like that's what he does. And Robert Woods, again, he fits the Titans because some of the things the Rams had him doing with the blocking and getting inside, and it's going to allow him to actually use his skill set because you forget he ran I think he might have ran a 4.3 coming out. So to allow Robert Woods to be that polished adult wide receiver and let Burks make big plays, along with they're still going to be a running team anyway. And then Tannehill's not terrible. I'm just saying, of course, last game we saw him and he was terrible, but I just think with the injury they had last year and it just him relying on AJ Brown, that was number one seed. You know what I mean? And we say they're a run team only, Henry instead of Henry that, but they didn't have Henry. Tannehill's good for occasionally giving you a drive that you least expect. So just again, that team, I think they're just a team that's underrated. They get overlooked, not underrated. They get overlooked because they lack of real star power beside Henry. But it's just a team that I think is just always going to be tough to play. And in that division, they're going to scratch games out and make it tough on people.
Not for sure. Yeah, I'm interested in watching Treylon. And there's another young wide receiver out there, I think, on a year too. Is it McGrath? That's been making noise. McMath, I'm sorry, that's been making noise during camp as well. But yeah, going back to like the Steelers, for the Titans, they just need the quarterback to stay on schedule and not mess anything up, like drastically. And they should be okay. Like you said, Tannehill is physically gifted enough that a couple times a game he can get you out of a bad situation or make a play off schedule, but he's also not good enough where you can just be like, hey, go win us this game.
Right.
Like, that's the weird place they're in. Hence the reason they drafted a young quarterback that, they're okay with developing and waiting on for a little bit. To the Chiefs, I know that it didn't happen how they expected or anticipated. I think they were like in their mind, hey, we'll lose Charvarius Ward to keep Tyreek Hill, right? From a money standpoint. Cool. Then the Tyreek Hill thing threw them for a loop. Now you lost two starters. How do we fix it? Let's go get Justin Reed. Pair him with Juan Thornhill. Change the defense up just a little bit. We still got L'Jarius Sneed and, a couple other younger corners. They drafted another young corner. And then we saw that. I thought they did a great job last year with the offensive line, changing it that quickly in one offseason. And then offensively, things would be a little bit different because it won't be the same guys. But they have talent in that wide receiver room. Like, there's capable and willing, talented pass catchers on their roster. But yeah, your thoughts on the Chiefs?
Yeah, and I definitely agree with your take on it. I think things I had was just they wouldn't improve the defense, and depending on how you look at it, obviously they lost their number one corner who was becoming a star. But they filled in a lot of spots around that with youth. And I think that's a big thing is just moving forward is like we were talking about with the Bengals, at some point you do have to pay everybody. So with them it was just more of a strength by numbers thing and throwing a lot of darts on the defense and then throwing a lot of darts at the wide receiver position as well. So who's this, with moving forward, they may take a half step back or a step back and move forward and be a better team in the long run when you add. We forget a couple years ago, Juju was one of the best receivers and one of the better receivers in the league. So he just does it differently. He has the ability to run after catch. He gets open, but with the talent that Pittsburgh had around him, he kind of got pigeonholed into that slot position. So again, even just with that, I think he knows how to find openings and do the things Mahomes actually needs. And then they're not dependent on him to do everything. They have Kelsey who can mix up pretty well. So the two of them could be interchangeable in some ways, or allow Kelsey to get outside and isolate. And then, adding MVS, and they seem to really like Sky Moore. And then the running back position doesn't have a star, but it has a mixture of talent. Guys who McKinnon was their best back last year. Ronald Jones is a talented player who hasn't got it going yet. And then Hilaire, might be able to just fall more into receiving and, certain types of run that he specializes in where it just makes the offense more multiple, harder to prepare for.
Yeah, I think it does one of the things that you've been talking about that has bugged you for a while watching them. It takes some of the boom or bust volatility out of that offense. Where obviously I'm not saying they're about to turn into a clock-eating 17 to 25 play drive team all the time. It's just that, like you said, now it might be a little bit more balanced, might be a little bit more multiple. It'll be a little bit they might not put the exact same level of stress or fear into defenses, but they can cut you more ways now. And then the other thing defensively, just getting rid of some of the names, and I'm sure they really didn't want to lose Charvarius. However, if you can round out your defense a little bit, because let's be honest, their defense was just opportunistic. You make a big play, it goes a long way because you just gave that offense an extra possession, and more likely than not, they'll make the most of it. But they'll probably be in a position to play more complementary football, which might get them out of some situations that they've put themselves in the past. But obviously, you're not just going to just be better by losing, like top-notch players in the NFL at their respective positions. That's not what I think anybody's saying. But in terms of being able to retool, because again, like you said, so about teams like the Bengals that are about to go through that, that's a hell of a job retooling. That's a heck of a job to go through what you just went through this offseason and land on your feet. And they landed with both feet on the ground. So kudos to them for nailing it. The Raiders, I'd love to hear this one because obviously, the big name is Devontae. After that, what else you got?
I think for me it was they added some game changers. Whether it's Devontae and Chandler Jones, what they bring to the team is that star power, the ability to make a play when it needs to be made. And again, no one talks about it, but with all that talk about the AFC West and the Chargers and the Broncos, the Raiders actually made the playoffs last year. And with all the Gruden stuff and the new head coach coming in, and somehow Carr and that team got to the playoffs, and Waller was out most of the season. So they fought hard to make the playoffs, and now I think they just upgraded the talent. They had issues in secondary, so they traded Ngakoue for Rocky Sin. They got Anthony Averett, who's an underrated corner, who's with more reps is only going to get better. And they had Trayvon Mullen coming back. So that's a solid, they're young, but that's a talented cornerback room. And then Trayvon Merrick is one of the better safeties in the league going into his second year. So I just think they have a chance to be a really good team. I think a lot of times people talk about the defense not being that good or whatever, but there's talent there. You got two of the better edge rushers in the league. And then you have, a growing secondary. And then the offense, you made the offense it's definitely Carr friendly, The improvement for Carr is having Adams, who's his guy, and then him and Renfro, they cook, they that's his third down guy, that's his guy. And then him and Waller have a great relationship. So just seeing how they make it work, I kind of tried to picture how McDaniel would use this compared to any of his New England teams. I tried to look at like a Welker or like a Edelman and Gronk, or like how they, obviously they don't have no one that compares to Moss really, but the way they're going to try to move those pieces around to get the best out of it. And again, that's going to help where a lot of times people say Carr struggles with pressure is you got guys who can get open fast. Adams' release game is serious and Renfro's is too, and then Waller, either you're going to be scared of him and play off him or you're going to get up on him and he can run by you. So it might not be a specific way to use the same, but guys are going to do it.
Not for sure. And like you said, Devontae might have the best release game in the league, honestly. And then Renfro's probably in that top group, which is crazy because I know nobody thinks about it. So like you said, guys that get open quickly. In my mind, they got two closers on each side of the ball. Devontae, that's when you need something offensively. What's a quarterback's best friend? Somebody who can win quick. And Devontae is somebody who can win quick against anyone. That's what he shows in Green Bay when Aaron would ignore everybody else in the world and just throw to him. And we knew it watching where the ball was going. The other teams knew it, and what happened? They still were doing whatever it is that they wanted to do. Because dude is amazing. But again, Chandler Jones. I don't understand how we got to this portion in his career where people still don't put the proper respect on his name. And kudos to Max Crosby for what he is and what he's become. A closer. You got a closer. Like Chandler Jones is an official closer. And I think the Raiders are going to reap are going to get the rewards out of that. Again, good job by them. On to the NFC, starting with you guys, man. Dallas.
I don't even really have it's funny with them is I thought it through and I know what their thought process may have been, but I really they didn't really execute, any of that. So, they're going off how they lost that San Francisco game, getting out physical and just beaten up, and the offensive line obviously was a concern, but I didn't really feel like they upgraded. I mean, Tyler Smith, he's gonna be a good player, definitely inside and hopefully at some point outside. But him replacing Connor Williams, I guess, gives them a power part of their game, even though they don't really run the ball that well. Again, I think with them it was, I don't know. It's just one of those weird ones because I look at that. I know offensive line was a concern, and I know they wanted more pressure from the defensive line. But they lost all those, like they lost Leo Collins. They let him go. They lost Randy Gregory, who I think, obviously they can say they didn't want back, but they lost him. And Cooper's gone. And it's hard to, I guess they had to choose out of Gallup and Cooper, and they chose Gallup. And I think Gallup is, the one thing I think Gallup gives Dak that a lot of people overlook is that's the only guy he will throw a 50-50 ball to. That's his guy that he trusts to throw a fade to. Not too many other guys in Dallas are getting those because Dak's such a methodical, by-the-book quarterback in most cases. So, I think that's the one guy who he'll just take it and throw it up to, which I've seen, you've seen over the years. But I just think Cooper's ability to create, I think Dallas viewed Cooper and Lamb as similar players. And I think that's what it came down to, was Lamb was the guy of the future, and they felt like, having Cooper there almost kind of became a safety blanket in some ways because, as good as Lamb is, I think Dak had a rapport with Cooper. Whether anyone wants to say it or not or complain about different things about it, Dak's career took off when Cooper got there. When they traded for Cooper that season, they went crazy, and just knowing a guy who runs his routes a certain way and creates separation the way he does and can win inside, outside, and whatever, I think it's hard to look away from that guy. Lamb's becoming that guy, hopefully, to them. But again, with that, I think Lamb he's one of those guys that needs someone to stretch the field to open the middle for him. And I don't know if he's a true one, And in college, he did show the ability to go make tough catches. He hasn't really had as many chances with Dallas because they move more. They kind of seem to hide him a little bit. But I think that's was their thing, was to make this offense, Lamb's offense, Lamb and Dak. And, I don't know where the full step forward was. I think there's a lot on that defense that they're hoping for. You need Sam Williams to step up. You need somebody inside, one of the defensive tackles to step up. But when it comes to the moves made in the offseason, you need Anthony Barr. That's a signing they made. And, the fact that no one went after Anthony Barr says a lot for so long, whether it's injuries and deciding if he's going to be a pass rusher or dropping the coverage. I mean, if he can become who he was supposed to be coming out of college, you can get the best version of Parsons because he can do everything, even though they're kind of, what you're asking them to do is kind of similar things. So I think just the versatility of Parsons is going to try to make this work for him.
Yeah, I think they just panicked. Like, honestly, I think they just panicked. Like, all the moves they made, there was no reason to get rid of Amari. Even now, like the deal he's on, looking at what other people got paid, you could have afforded that. Life would have been fine. You got a while before you have to pay CD. You barely paid Gallup. Dak already got his money. I would have kept, I feel like it was kind of like similar to the Tennessee thing, is like you panicked into doing something you didn't have to do. No one forced you into doing it. And even with the offensive line, there was no reason to let go of Leo Collins. I know you texted me yesterday, said you watched that playoff game again. Like, there's no way anybody with sense watched that game, watched that offensive line die in that game, and was like, oh, we can afford to lose Leo Collins. When Leo Collins was physically the only one that was able to fight back or hold his own at times. That's it. The other four died for 4 quarters. And it wasn't like, again, I'm not trying to be mean. Like, it's not like the Niners had everybody at their full disposal on their in their front to begin with.
Also got hurt in the second quarter.
You didn't have big behind Kinlaw in there pushing next to Eric. Ebukam was just kind of starting to figure it out. Minute who had a big game. Like, in terms of looking at the line that did that type of damage versus the line they have this year, like this one's deeper. You didn't have to panic. All you had to do was go in there, add depth to the O line. Like in my mind, add depth to the O line. Because yeah, maybe get some competition. Guys need to get better because things go well. There's a good chance you might see them again. And I think the panic move cost you. Like I think your offensive line got worse. So if you do see them again, it might be twice as bad. I'm just talking about it in between their D line and your O line because you panicked. You just didn't have to do any of those things. You talked about like offensively with CD. Yeah, I don't know what's gonna happen because you took other stuff away, and you didn't even max. I don't even think they took full advantage of the fact that you had Coop there to take attention off the kid. So I think CD is great. I don't think he's as great yet as some fans think he is already. I'm not ready to put him in those conversations, but I think you might have did him a disservice in this case because you panicked and got rid of Amari. You could have had a nice natural progression of Amari's here until we know you're ready to take that role, and then it's fine. Then you bring in somebody else with him. Yeah, I just felt like they panicked and I think they went backwards instead of forwards. Like that's the scary thing. Sometimes they do irrational things, but they stay the same. This is one of those times where I think they did some irrational things and got worse. I think one of their saving graces is that the secondary might be better because of, the youngster that got cleared of everything. Is it Kelvin Joseph? Right, because of Kelvin Joseph, opposite Diggs. So that's a positive. But your O-line, bro, if your O-line is worse than it was last year, Dak's in trouble, and he just got back from injury. And, it's not like you run the most exotic stuff offensively to begin with. You need that line to block. And if they're worse, man, you could throw the season away. And I'm sitting here looking over at a couple of your division mates where their front sevens are stupid. We know what Washington's look like from a pure talent standpoint, but the Eagles' front line was really good last year and didn't get any credit. And then you just throw Jordan Davis big behind in it where it's just like, hey, go push people, lean on people, whatever happens, happens. And they added, Reddick? Like, I don't know how your last year's line, I'd be like, all right, they can fight back, they'll be okay, right? I don't think I can say that for this year's group. And I don't even know if you're going to deal with the Giants' defensive line fine, honestly. I'm not trying to be the bearer of bad news, anything, just being honest. Like, that's a bad place to take a step backwards in. It's just a really bad place because it affects everything offensively. Especially when it's not like you have a super diverse offensive attack. Like, you can just have counters and adjust to it. Like, I don't think they're one of the teams where it's, our line's just okay, we can scheme around it. I don't know. That's just me. So, sorry to be a negative person about it. I think it hurts. But on to the Eagles. They got an A.J. Brown. I think that goes a long way. And their defense, again, I don't think their defense got credit last year. The defense was good. I liked their front seven last year. Their defensive line last year.
Yeah.
Let me be specific. I think they've tried to add and improve their front seven. And I like what they've done on the back end where Darius Slay's not just all by himself anymore, which is good. So, I think the Eagles are kind of on their way to being possibly the most complete team in that division on paper. Now it's about them going out and proving it on the field. Your thoughts?
Agreed. Yeah, I think, like I said, defensively, adding Bradbury and adding Tart, completes that, takes the defense to another level. Then again, having Reddick as an outside rusher because they're most of their rushers are bigger guys, so having a guy who consistently gets sacks, that's what Reddick does. He comes off the edge and gets sacks, and then Davis and if Dean plays, who knows? If Nakobe Dean actually turns out to be a player, that will help. But then having two number one corners, Bradbury's been a number one corner. Not saying he's like a top-notch number one, but he's been a solid number one at times. So another guy you can trust out there, and then Tart's just a pro, and then I think that solidifies the secondary. So really what it comes, and then the thing was offensively was, Hurts was threw to the middle of the field less than I think any other quarterback in the league, or maybe not any other, but whatever, a low percentage. But adding a guy who wins inside like AJ does, so it's not directly across the middle of the field, but a guy who wins on in routes, slants, crossers and things like that, I think is just going to help him. Now it's going to open Devontae up because you can't leave the middle of the field open because you got to squeeze it to take AJ away, and Goddard's a solid tight end. So I think it just has a chance for this offense to go to another level. And then with Jalen's ability to run, and then now the receivers, it allowed Miles Sanders, to have a big year, a chance to have a big year. Because they really, last year when they started winning, it was when they went to more of a running game, whether it was Jalen's legs or, different things with the run game, because they have one of the best offensive lines in the league also. So, again, just a lot of it, unfortunately, falls on Jalen Hurts' shoulders. Just seeing another year of growth from him and just being reliable, not having to do anything crazy, but, make the plays he makes, but then just be consistent and get the ball to the playmakers, because they have a chance to win this division. I don't want to say easily, but they really have a chance to win this division because they're the most complete team. And, complete meaning solid, but then there's some high-level talent there also. So they have a chance to really do some damage.
All right, on to the Packers. They've been busy. They've been a great regular season team. For them, it's just about winning in the postseason. And obviously, this is just, for me, it's kind of a similar conversation to what we said earlier about the Chiefs when you lose top-notch talent. Like, there's no replacing Devontae Adams, all right, folks? That's an L. You just got to chalk that up. And it's about managing, that L. I think it spoke volumes when they went defense in the first round. They needed one would think that they needed wide receivers after losing arguably the best wide receiver in the league. I think they are going to get closer to running that offense the way it's supposed to be run all the time with Aaron now. It'll be a little bit more like other teams that run it, where maybe they'll lean a little bit more on the run game. Now, I think this gives them a chance to kind of be the level of physical that they claim that they want to be. Now it almost forces you to have to be it. So we're going to find out about it on both sides. I think their defense has been good for a couple years. There's just been a few tough matchups. And a lot of teams have those tough matchups. Like, it's cool. Like, every team has a couple teams where they just match up well against you and they succeed. But I like what they did defensively, adding to it. This is where having one of the better quarterbacks to have played the game should make things okay in losing Devontae Adams. It's not okay, but because it didn't have to happen. However, you're here, and I'm anxious to see which players out of that group stand out to become guys for him. Or is it just going to be by numbers?
Yeah, for them, like you said, that defensively, the defense was one of the better defenses in the league last year. And they were having Rasul Douglas have a great year, and then, teaming up with Stokes, because Alexander missed most of the season. So throwing in a number one corner, definitely automatically just makes your defense better. And then Rashawn Gary, took another step, and now he's one of the best pass rushers in the league. And then the two draft picks, the two Georgia kids, like, it just allowed them, like a lot of things was they didn't like that having that second linebacker on the field, because they felt like it was someone who could be attacked. But again, having Quay Walker, who can cover as well as any, he's probably one of the best cover linebackers in the draft, and then he's big and can take on the run and that type of thing. So it's not like it's a guy you have to hide. So they want to be able to play sit in that 4-2-5 nonstop, and not have to make any moves and sit in the nickel, because they're three. You have the three good corners and the two good safeties, and now you add in another D tackle next to Wyatt, next to Kenny Clark. It just what it does for them. That defense is really tough. It just allows them to sit with their best players on the field at all times, and not be taken advantage of or schemed off the field. So they have a chance to really, and again, with the coverage back there, they'll be able to send more pressure. It just gives them a chance to be a really dominant defense, which I think that was a thing they felt like, they have their kryptonite, which was basically the NFC West. And I think it gives them a chance to just feel like they can hang in there. And again, maybe not physically dominate this team, but hold in there, and now our quarterback's better than yours, and I think that might be their plan. And then maybe this is that way to offensively to get Aaron to get the ball to the other guys, and you can kind of get lazy when you have a receiver that good, and he was that good, but there were so many times where, he probably had a guy where he could have put a game away, but he forced the ball into Devontae because he, pre-snap knew he wanted to go there. And now you have other weapons around them that they're solid NFL players. No one special, but it looks like Dobbs has been playing well, but again, it's only training camp. Watson can stretch the field, like it's almost similar like we talked about with Kansas City. Watson could be the guy to stretch the field, and maybe by the end of the season he grows. Sammy Watkins is solid. Randall Cobb's his guy, and then Lazard gives him that a bigger receiver who can make catches in traffic and some of the in between the numbers thing. So again, it'll sort itself out. I think just with a bunch of guys who have a decent amount of talent with something to prove. Each one of them has to prove themselves, and having a quarterback that probably feels like he might need have something to prove also. So I think they have a chance. They have a chance, just like they have the last few years, to really do damage. But again, if they're just a tougher team, a more physical team, and the running backs will play a huge part. Seeing how they played Dylan and Aaron Jones together separate. How that works out, because I think when Adams was out last year, Jones was the main receiver. So just seeing how the ball gets moved around will be interesting to watch.
Yeah, and I think one of the points that you made was, look, man, if you can just hold those teams to where it's literally, is our quarterback better than yours? It drastically changes the outcomes of some of those games. Because some of those teams made it to where they put Aaron in such a bad place, their quarterbacks didn't have to be better than him. And that's where the difference was. So again, we'll see how that goes. But once again, they should still remain where they've been in the NFC, which is in the mix. They're a contender. It's just up to them to can they make a run with it now instead of kind of getting to the same place and bowing out, not so gracefully each and every time. The Bucks. Your thoughts on the Bucks?
For them, it was just rebuilding the interior O-line. They lost, I think, Marpet, and I think the other guard. But they replaced the other guard with Shaq Mason for the Pats. And then I think now the center's injured, so that's another issue they're going to have. But I think it was just fixing that, then just improve. Then just get healthy. Last year I think they had some injuries in the secondary. The young corners were in and out. And then adding to the D-line, Ndamukong Suh's gone, and then Jason Pierre-Paul's gone. So hopefully they get some improvement on the outside from the rookie last year, Joe Tryon. He'll step in over there opposite Barrett. And again, I think with them, the linebackers play a huge part in that defense as well. And I think they added another big D tackle to put next to Vita Vea. So I think letting the linebackers run around and make plays, and then just another step from the secondary. Losing Whitehead might hurt a little bit, but they added they added a safety. I forgot who it was, but I think that'll just. They're just a solid team, and again they like to bring pressure and put those corners on the island. So, and I think they'll be a good team. Then adding weapons offensively, losing Gronk, who whatever you want to say, seems to somehow always be the go-to guy in those situations for Brady. But having Godwin back healthy, and then they added the speed receiver from Atlanta, the slot guy, Gage. So that'll help as well. They've just tried to round out that offense. And Brady just showed arm seems to get stronger. He's pulled up the field, he's going on, and he's all the hands. So I just want to see sometimes your team just keeps saying, get back. I just wonder how they're aging. That's what I'm interested in. Because the Rams were beating them pretty bad last year. Before they made a run late, but they had to make hopes tie it up actually, but. Just the Rams were beating them up pretty good. So, just want to see the moves they made.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, I know people have said already, kind of the NFC looks like the weaker of the two after watching with all the movement in the AFC and everything of that nature. Yeah, you can make a case for almost anybody, any of the quote-unquote contenders in the NFC, that there's legit issues for all of them, right? Like, legit issues that could keep them from not only not contending, but like just not being a factor on that side, depending on what falls, what things go wrong. Protecting Brady's that's the end all be all for them. Like right. It's just that simple. It's the end all be all for them. I got faith in what they do defensively that they'll be okay, even if they lost some big names, what have you. You get another year to see if Devin White takes another step. would go a long way for the middle of that defense. Um, but yeah, man, it's just about the O line has to keep that guy healthy, and they got a chance all the time. And I think what really hurt them, like even last year, talking about with the Rams, was the fact that they couldn't block those guys.
Right.
That was the main issue. When they held up, Tom's gonna be Tom. Like I don't care who you have in coverage. You give that man time. There's nothing you're gonna show him that he hasn't seen, like that he hasn't had like 30 reps against in that long career of his. You're gonna show him something. He's be like, oh, I beat this in 03, 12. I remember when you used to do this. He says to the defensive coordinator. All right, on to the Rams. The biggest thing that jumps out to me, I know, some folks like, oh, they need to get Odell back, all that, man. Look, I'll stand on this. I don't mind if I end up being wrong or whatever. I've had this energy since they signed him. Allen Robinson is going to change this offense. It's going to make them so much more so much more dangerous. Because you got somebody, Matthew Stafford's used to throwing to bigger targets his entire career anyways. You got another guy where you could just box out and go get it. Run to the sticks, go get it. Anything else that happens is a plus. And I think sometimes we all have an issue just as a whole. If someone's not consistently doing what we saw them do, we rule out every other variable and just be like, oh, it's just them. They're bad. They're washed. Something happened. Nah, like sometimes this might be the best situation player X has been in. And I think this might be the case for Allen Robinson. In his career, it's probably the best spot he's ever been in. Obviously, you have Cooper. The McVay scheme with him. I'm thinking about how they use Robert Woods, and you think about how big Allen Robinson is. I don't know how you really deal with it. They have to do better running the ball and everything. But you know how they get it in. They got their stalwarts on each level of their defense, and the other guys fill in. I don't think they get enough credit for the job they do drafting and developing the other guys that fill in around their stalwarts. I think the Rams gonna be right back in it, man. In my mind, they're the big dog in the NFC until somebody knocks them off. There's no reason for anybody. In my mind, there's no reason to move them out the way for anybody. Packers, Bucks, Niners, whoever. No, there's no reason to knock them off. Like to move them from where they currently sit as the reigning champs.
Yeah, and I definitely agree with that. I think, like you said, the thought going into the offseason, obviously it seemed like getting that complimentary receiver was the first thing they did. That it wasn't long that Allen Robinson was out there, and it wasn't really much of a bidding war. So they gave him a decent contract. So it's not like last year they added a lot of 1-year guys. Like this is a move that they plan on having him for a couple of years. I think it was a 3 or 4 year deal. So again, what they think, what they had coming back, with obviously Beckham being hurt, was they obviously didn't feel like Robert Woods was the player that could take that help that offense keep going. Like even last year they won without him because he was injured, but I think they felt like they had to make an upgrade at that spot. Like whether it was someone between him and Beckham or just a different type of talent. So I think what they added there just allows the offense to expand. And I still feel like losing Whitworth is going to hurt, but again, the way they play, he gets it out of his hand, or mixing the different types of run games, the things they do with the run scheme and bootlegs and things like that. I think they'll be okay. And then, obviously Akers. I think I'm expecting a different type of Akers because coming back from the injury and walking after 6 months, is an accomplishment. But playing in NFL playoff games says even more, and then the fact that those other guys who've been on the roster, Sony Michel and Henderson, had been playing all season, and he still was getting the carries. Like kind of says, I don't know if it says more for him or less for them, but kind of just says the confidence that McVay has in him and what they want to do with him. And again, the year before he was solid, he was a good back. So I think that, and then adding like you were saying, that this is a team of like you said, superpowers, and then they just fill in the blanks. And I think we just have to see if they filled in the blanks well enough. They drafted the first draft pick was a guard who hopefully for them will play this year, and some of them they traded for one of their corners back. Got back one of their slot corners from that went to the Browns. So we'll see if he can help, and then just the young safeties and just the young pieces they have, and then Bobby Wagner will help. So just and then what they really need is one of those edge players to step up from last year. They need whether it's I forgot the two guys are.
Leonard Floyd, yeah.
Leonard Floyd needs to be the guy now. And then they have Terrell Lewis, who they drafted a couple years ago from Alabama, who's a talented player but has been injured. So just to see what happens with that. But like you said, it comes down to what you're getting from Donald, what you're getting from Wagner now, and what you're getting from Ramsey. And it's just these other guys stepping up. And the staff has shown the ability to call plays and to, work around those players and maximize everyone else. So they're going to be a good team.
Yeah, and may I remind you something that sounds super weird? Allen Robinson's 1 year younger than Cooper Kupp. Just to put that in perspective, which is absurd when you think about it. But Allen's been playing since 2014. I think Cooper got drafted in 2017. And Allen's the younger of the two. But again, Allen's only had, what is it, 3 seasons? And when he's had less than 1,000 yards, I'm sorry. He's had, I think it's been 4. His rookie year 1. Bro, played in Jacksonville and Chicago. Again, envision that talent in this scheme. I'm going to keep coming back to this. We didn't even see 100% Odell in this scheme. And think about how dangerous he was for that little bit. That was Odell coming off an injury. Like that wasn't like Odell right out the league in this scheme. And it was great for, it was great as a compliment to Cooper. But again, I'm not going to sit here and continue to wax poetically and positively about the Rams. But look, they're in a good place. And it's theirs until somebody knocks them off. Again, what like you said, what Wags does, inserting Wags into the second level of their defense, even it just gives you a little bit of a pause, is huge. Secondly, they're probably not even asking him to do much outside of just do what he does. He's not gonna have as much responsibility as he had in Seattle. So we'll see how that goes, man. But they're in a great place. Then I think the last two, you had the 49ers and the Cardinals. So you can go ahead, sir, and take the floor.
I think, again, 49ers, basically this is coming off last season, ended that season kind of knowing the quarterback situation, what the plan was. It was, switching this offense over to, and I think they kind of already started doing that anyway ahead of time, but they knew when that season ended, quarterback situation was going to change. And then it was adding an alpha corner. They needed to upgrade that cornerback room, or I think they wanted to upgrade that cornerback. I don't even think it was like a cornerback. The secondary wasn't bad, but it was. I think that's where it came down to, do we run our defense through our safeties like we have been like we had to last year, or can we throw a corner in and change things a little bit and be more aggressive or whatever the case may be. And then I think the other thing was just trenches. For them, it's always going to be trenches. Defensively, it's just adding more talent. Offensively, the interior O-line was something that they had been focused on. So just seeing how those positions hold up and the moves they made. The thing was all those things were filled, quarterback in-house, and the trenches were kind of in-house as well as adding talent, whether it was in the draft or, extra defensive linemen that they, because again, they have a type. So they pick guys that they like and they work with them and work miracles with them. So I think for them, they filled all the holes they had. And, again, as just judging from camp, the cornerback they signed seems to be blossoming into a player that, not too many other people thought he was anyway. So I think that'd be interesting for them. But they filled the needs. They went into the offseason with a plan and they hit them all.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is, everyone's like the big question mark. Their quarterback play hasn't exactly been like at the top of the league to begin with. It's just not to mess things up too much. And that's kind of like what the role of the quarterback has been under this regime, honestly. Not to mess things up too much. It's the run game and the defense. I think they've made this abundantly clear to everyone. That's who they are. And anything, the quarterback gives them, if the quarterback gives them anything else, it's a bonus, and that's great. But yeah, I think people are making too big a situation about the quarterback change. To me, we've seen what Kyle did with like Nick Mullins. Like, they'll be fine. You're not asking the kid to do too much in year one. 2, The weaponry around him is good, and like you said, it's about the trenches for them. If I mean, to be honest, they might have done what they wanted to get done if their interior O line was better in 2019. Being completely honest, I think multiple things could be true. Could Dude have played a little bit better? Sure. However, I think they changed the philosophy up front in terms of the body types they have now, which is interesting because, like you said, the trenches are important. Then on the other side, it's probably I think that 2019 defensive line was top heavy. Like that front four was amazing, star studded and amazing. This group has a chance to be better than that group. That's what I personally think. We'll see what happens. Health withstanding. And that's with not knowing who the fourth person is going to be all the time. But I think Bosa, Armstead, Kinlaw, those three, and whoever the fourth person might be, is better than last year's. We saw what that defensive line did last year, and they were missing. Like, we didn't see any of Kinlaw and Armstead inside together last year. And they look like they're starting this year with those two next to each other, which I think goes a long way. You mentioned Charvarius Ward. Has a chance to be the best corner they've had there in like 25 years. Not trying to be mean, not knocking anybody. Someone takes it that way, I apologize. In terms of how multiple they can be on defense now. Because before they had to be a certain way because of how things were set up in the personnel. They can be a little bit more multiple now. You mentioned Kwaski being on the Eagles. And, you and I have been talking a lot about this, how that changes what might happen on defense a little bit more. But they're also a team that plays a lot of three safeties, so it doesn't matter. Also, I'm interested to see maybe if they stay in base a little bit more this year and take advantage of having those three linebackers. But I think like you said, they're another one of those teams that they knew what their issues were. I think they addressed them all. And it's a matter of what it looks like when they go out there and do it. But I think this O-line has a chance to be better than the offensive lines in the past. Like even last year's offensive line. They were better at center for sure. Both guard spots were shaky at times. And I don't think that's a lie or, that's disparaging anybody. Just being honest, at times, like, teams with good guards, like we saw Kenny Clark wreck shop against them. We know what Aaron Donald does at times. Like, the Eagles, Fletcher Cox has gone nuts against that interior. So it's interesting seeing how they've beefed up the interior to get guys that maybe can hold their own against some of those top-notch rushers from a physical standpoint. Obviously, you're not going to stop Fletcher, Aaron, Kenny, what have you, but if you got a chance to at least hold them a little longer, it goes a long way for pass plays. But we'll see. Then I think the last team you had was the Cardinals, which is always interesting.
Yeah, that's a weird one for me. I guess them and Dallas were two of the ones where like I don't really know what they did to upgrade. I think they run their offense a certain kind of way with the spread stuff, and add Marquise Brown would be it would be fun. I mean, it's going to be interesting just seeing what the plan is. Like, I don't like the cost of it. I don't like a lot of it, but being where with Hopkins, if Hopkins was going to be there every game, Marquise kind of just becomes another weapon. But then just add Marquise to what you already have Rondell, and I'm assuming they're done with Isabella. But I don't know. I didn't really get what their plan was. They lost their best defensive lineman. They didn't add any bigger anything that matters in the secondary, and just they didn't upgrade the offensive line. They added Marquise Brown, and they brought Zach Ertz back, which Zach Ertz is a good tight end, but I don't know. I didn't really see what their plan was. I didn't really see a plan. They got the young linebackers who haven't really done much yet. So I've heard they've been playing Simmons at like nickel or some type of weird star position. So we'll see how that works out. But again, for a team that was 7-0 and a team that made the playoffs but got embarrassed in the playoffs, you would have thought they'd fix the O-line or something. But adding another receiver who you're going to have to pay a lot of money because you gave a first-round pick for him, kind of just, I don't know. I just didn't really get what their plan was. That's kind of why I kind of left them blank. I just know I didn't like it. That's pretty much what I got.
Yeah, I think they're in this weird space, right, where I think they kind of committed to who they're going to be, but I don't necessarily agree with the way they went about it, about getting there. I don't think they could have afforded to lose Chandler Jones, man. I'm gonna be completely honest. The year when he was out wasn't exactly fun. Losing him didn't make any sense to me at all, considering what you're really paying back there. I like their young secondary, which again goes back to why I don't understand why you would get rid of Chandler Jones. No, you had a very young and talented secondary back there. I think they still have JJ, and that's cool. But again, you lost Chandler freaking Jones, man. Like for example, that's me. I talk a lot about the Niners defensive line, and what I literally just said was with the three of their best guys on the field, and whoever the fourth may be, puts them probably in the, to me in my mind, it's not that crazy that it could rival the 2019 group. However, if you were to take Eric, or let me say, if I was to take both sides of that equation, and it's just Eric and Javon, that's a different discussion we're having. They don't have Eric or Javon over there and lost Chandler. You can't lose like those super elite edge guys in this league. I don't think you can. And they did, and it's gonna hurt. D-Hop being out for 6 weeks, he'll be back or whatever, what have you. I like Ertz being there, and even for them, it's just they've shown the tendency the past couple seasons they'll start fast and then the wheels just fall off. So I don't know what it is. Is it an adjustment thing? What goes on where you can get off to these quick starts, but we just never see you sustain it at all? Why can't you sustain like the good? I mean, it's not like you've just been ravaged by injuries. Like some teams, like sometimes, like you guys are for the most part pretty darn healthy. And again, I just don't really get it. I don't fully see the plan. I know they couldn't afford to lose Kyler, but they got to figure something out. It was weird to me watching the go get Hollywood, knowing that like they couldn't even fully like unlock Rondale Moore in that division, and I don't even know if their body types are okay for playing in that division like that. And then some of the thing with Hollywood is the drops, man. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it seemed like a move just to bring the quarterback's friend in. Like I don't like it. I mean, it sounds then that and this with Cliff is it like. Is he really trying to run a college Texas Tech offense? Is that really what his thought process is? He really wants to run Texas Tech? Because at the end of the day, the offense is pretty simple. It's pretty much you're here, you run up here, you run up here, you run up here. So, like, does he want to go like a real run and shoot type thing, which is tough because you still have Ertz out there. And then, I mean, even losing Edmonds was big because Connor is, he had the touchdown, certain things, but he wasn't an every down back. Having a guy who be part of the offense between the 20s and let Connor do what he does. Like, I don't know. I feel like every team kind of has to have some area that's your strength. And defensively, it was Chandler Jones. It was that defensive line, and they lost that. The linebackers are developing, but they still haven't made enough steps to have confidence that they're going to do anything. And the secondary is young, but, again, the best friend of a secondary is pass rush. So, letting your best pass rusher go for nothing. Like, I don't know. I just feel like letting these people go, there was a move. If you were going to let Chandler Jones go or let any of these other guys go, there was a move that needed to be made. Something, whatever that may be, whether it was, even if it was like adding a Bobby Wagner or just like strengthening one part of your team, or going after a younger defensive end if you wanted to go after Randy Gregory or somebody because you didn't want to pay Chandler Jones because he's aging. Something like that would have made more sense, but you're kind of just with a lot of average guys, borderline NFL players, and just throwing them on the field with no one to look to make plays.
Yeah, and like what they did in the draft is, I'm not even mad at the draft they had. It's just like it would have been better coupled with with your veteran players that were there. Because now I feel like you got guys who could be guys, right? At some point, like Trey McBride should be able to come in right away and help at tight end, which is cool. That is great. But Cameron Thomas, defensive lineman. Majai Sanders from Cincinnati. You took Jesse Lakita from Penn State. Like, all those guys could possibly fit into what you... It looks like they want to have an uber athletic front seven, and that's great. However, I don't know what that looks like until they're ready how is this gonna go? You know, like it's one thing where you bring the young guy in, and it's, hey, you know, if you're able to hit the ground running, that's cool. Like Odafe in Baltimore, they brought him in. Everyone was kind of quiet, and next thing you know, he's in there, producing. Now it's like, oh, he's ready to go. You got Sanford is about to do the same thing with Drake Jackson. They don't have to come in and be the guy, but there's an opportunity. But these guys, because you took Chandler away, it's almost like I don't know, man. We'll see. I don't think you do that at that many positions when you don't have one like established. Like even with the Steelers, like you have TJ. So then yeah, you can take flyers on open competition for that other spot. That's cool. Then I'm not mad because there's no pressure on you, and you're gonna just get one-on-ones. You get a chance to like it puts you you almost set up to succeed a little bit. I just don't know how this goes, man. I really don't. But you know that's their choices, and I don't know. But I give them credit because I like what they did with their secondary from a youth standpoint. I thought they turned that over really nicely. But I don't know, man. I truly don't know. So it's James Conner and Damian Williams is their main backs. Then I think they still got Angel Benjamin from a couple years ago, but I'm sorry. It's like I don't know, man. I just don't, like you said, I don't know what the one thing is where it's like we know what they do. Like with the Rams, we know what they do. Like we know what they do. And again, in that division, to me, that's just not. Everybody got people to chase people. Like I don't.
That's why you run out of gas so fast, because it's all on him.
Yeah.
At some point, all that moving around is cool, and then it catches up, and a tick slower at 5'8".
Yeah.
Is you're not getting
it's
the edge the same way.
Yeah.
So I mean, I don't know. I just want to see more. I think, if for a lot of different quarterbacks, what Bush been doing would be fired already.
Yeah.
Again, Kyler might not be a Super Bowl winner, but he's done enough that he's keeping you presentable. All those guys got new contracts. But again, if they looked around at what they have there, minus him, with that scheme, what's the scheme now? If you had a stand-up pocket guy, or a certain kind of quarterback, maybe this team is terrible. Maybe everyone's going. But again, I don't know. You're a playoff team, and the moves you're making don't feel like a playoff team.
They don't reflect that of a playoff team. We just went through a list of teams that made the playoffs and are ready to try to get back there. I don't get it. And again, they're not the only ones on this list, but there's two teams on this list where it's just like, what you doing? Why? And that's what separates them from everybody else. Just what are you doing and why? Where everyone else would be like, all right, that makes sense. I get it. You lost that, but this is what you did to counter it, or this is what you got out of it. This is how you made sure it wasn't like a crippling loss. I don't have the answer for, like, no disrespect to Cameron Thomas, Josh Sanders, and Jesse Lakita. Bruh, you had a whole Chandler Jones.
Yeah.
You had a whole Chandler Jones.
Everyone they added was like someone who should have stepped behind somebody and learned. Like, first pick, he basically plays that position that Watt plays, so he can play behind Watt and learn from him. Lakita's an athlete who could have went behind and watched and learned, because again, he was originally a linebacker and he just moved to an end, but he's a freak athlete. And then Mike Sanders is an undersized end/linebacker, so it's like, to put that on his plate, he could have been the guy to sit behind Chandler Jones and learn. But if you put those, they're not ready to play. Cam Thomas has the size to play now, but he's not going to dominate. That's a 5 tech. He's a 5 tech basically. So where are you getting this pressure from? And that's where again, you're hoping one of these guys does it, but it's going to take time. These are the other two guys are speed guys with tools, but they got ways to go to be NFL ready.
You said, I don't know, man. Like, there's two teams on the list where I just don't have an answer for.
Mm-hmm.
Want to thank you guys for tuning in. Again, don't forget, hit the comment section. Let us know what you guys think. There's topics that you guys want to talk about. If you jump in here anytime before we get started, fill it up with the comment section. I'll easily scrap whatever we have prepared, if we have something prepared. But again, big week. It's the first day of a game week for a lot of teams. One thing that just came out just now, Jordan Love will be starting on Friday. Starting the Packers game. So getting him some reps, which never hurt anybody.
Trade equity.
You said trade equity already?
Who knows? If he plays that well, maybe somebody offers. I don't know.
Or do you just
sits for another 3 years and
it could be 3 years, it could be 1 year. We don't know it, Aaron.
True.
You know? But yeah, I'm just happy the kid gets a chance to start. I'm anxious to see how many and how long the starters for both of these teams play in this first one. Honestly, and excuse me, I know everyone's ready to take a whole bunch from this game. I'm just here to watch all the rookies in the depth, man.
Yeah, it's been so long. I just want to see a game. So at this
point. Yeah, so it should be fun. But again, we'll get through. We got several days this week before we get through to Friday. We'll get through this preseason week 1 schedule and talk about some things in terms of games we're looking forward to and why. Who from these teams that we would like to see, the matchups, how it affects camp battles, etc. But thank you guys for tuning in. Enjoy the rest of your day. We'll see you guys.